go into what I'm calling Judaism 101, random things that I think are essential for our Jewish practice. I will be discussing introduction to spiritual preparation for Passover, and the next 3 weeks I will stay on that theme until Passover. And what I want to talk about is something I've taught in the past, but I don't think it's ever been taught here, and therefore it's not up on YouTube. And it's called Four Dimensions of Tefillah, Four Dimensions of Prayer. I don't like using the word prayer because the word prayer oftentimes has the idea of beseeching the divine. I prefer the word tefillah that has many more dimensions than what is usually evoked when we say the word prayer. So the first is I want to use two words that are used in Hasidic Judaism and differentiate between the two. Those are the first two levels. And the first one is hitbodedut. Boded is the Hebrew word to be alone. The word livoded means to insulate. So there's an idea where one goes into a state of consciousness where one is insulated from the outside world, but also insulated from what is happening within you. Now, this is definitely some kind of transcendental meditation. I think it's a very minor part of a full spiritual practice and a tefillah practice, but it's something we should try to achieve to still the inner life, to still the flow state into a kind of nothingness where consciousness is not apprehending something, but in a state of complete receptivity, but not receptivity to the world around us, and not even receptive to the thoughts that come up, the monkey mind that comes up and tries to intrude into consciousness. It is actually quite difficult. It's something to work on. It's nothing to worry about if you find it difficult, because I certainly found it difficult for years and still find it difficult at times. So here's the Kabbalistic idea. Once you empty the mind, the infinite of the divine cannot withstand a vacuum, as it were, which means what you're doing is you're creating space for the divine no thing, for the divine ayin, the divine nothingness to come in. It's so intriguing that one of the Kabbalistic words for the highest level of the Kabbalistic tree of life, which oftentimes goes under the label keter or crown, another name of it is ayin, aleph, yud, nun, which means nothing or no thing. So I find that just touching into that realm makes one's life of tefillah much deeper. The second level is hitbodedut, which for me is the core of every hitbonenut, which is the core of every spiritual practice. The word hitbonenut is from the Hebrew root bet yud nun, which is between, and it has a sense of discernment or differentiation. For example, the Hebrew word lehavin means to understand something or differentiate one thing from another. So lehitbonen means we take the capacity to reflect and to understand ourselves and turn it inward. This is the foundation of most of the spiritual practices that I teach, which means we're going into the higher self, but not to insulate ourselves from the inner life, but to be able to observe the inner life. Lehavin, to understand ourselves, differentiate among different ego states, and try to cultivate a consciousness within where the disruptive ego states are at peace, as it were, at least for the time being, and our positive ego states start to fill the field of consciousness. So I call that hitbonenut, reflection, contemplation. The third one, also taken from the Hasidic tradition, this is Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav, has a book called Hishtapchut HaNefesh, which is the outpouring of the soul. Now, the outpouring of the soul, try to imagine, you've gotten to the center of your inner life. You can feel that you are, we say in Hebrew, upas, you are completely focused. It's like when you're shooting an arrow where you're all lined up, where you're looking at the weight scale and the line is on the zero. And you go to that place and you go to that spiritual center and you speak out the truest thing in your heart to the soul of the universe. Now, many people say, well, what if I don't believe in God? What if I don't believe in a personal God? It doesn't matter. Just imagine that the soul of the universe is completely tuned into you at that moment, and you have an opportunity to say, only for that moment, the truest thing in your heart in that moment. It is often words of grief. It is often words of deep longing for well-being for yourself or for other people. The times I've gone down there, sometimes the words that come out, I didn't even know were there. I was surprised by the core concern of my soul at that moment. It had been something I'd been avoiding or repressing. And it's always a revelatory moment, but it's also a deep moment of connecting to the divine. The fourth level is the actual words of the prayer book. And now, if we've accomplished a bit in hitbodedut, self-insulation, hitbonenut, contemplation, hishtapchuta nefesh, the ability to go to the core concerns of the soul, now when you open up a prayer book, you can engage in the Hasidic practice described in the Baal Shem Tov's Amud HaTfilah, which look at each word of the prayer book as an opening into an inner world of angels and souls and worlds, because you've opened up your own inner world. So many people, when they say, I have trouble with the prayer book, I have trouble praying, I lead people through this exercise. And another day I'll do a much lengthier guided journey, but I wanted to introduce this idea to those of you who may have not heard of it and might find this beneficial to your own spiritual practice.